world is battling multiple crises, impacting the lives of people around the globe. With only 4 years remaining until our 2030 deadline, progress on the Sustainable Development Goals remains uneven. Many challenges persist. Still, collective efforts bring results. Electricity is now accessible to 92% of the global population. Renewable capacity is rapidly growing, more than doubling since 2015. Internet is now reaching 3/4 of the world's population. When we work together, we can make things happen. We must act urgently, and we must act together to shift the momentum. The High-Level Political Forum is where we can make this happen, where we can accelerate action to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, our blueprint for a better world. This year, the forum puts a spotlight on clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, industry, innovation and infrastructure, sustainable cities and communities, and partnerships for the goals. 36 countries will show us their actions and solutions. Let us re-energize the global conversation, spotlight hope, and inspire action. Follow the conversation. Let's deliver better, let's deliver together for a sustainable future for all.
After the unexpected event, for which I apologize, and after the words of the Honorable Secretary General, and now for to this magnificent event that has brought us together here. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everyone joining us from around the world. Welcome to the official virtual SideEvent of the 2026 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, called from Fragmentation to Delivery, Multi-Stakeholder Governance for SDG Acceleration. My name is Ulises Pinacho, and it is my honor to moderate this evening on behalf of the Foundation for the Social Development, FUDESO, together with our co-conveners, the NGO Major Group and Stakeholder Forum. A few brief housekeeping notes. Please keep your microphones mute during interventions. Use the chat to introduce yourself, your name, organization, and country. And to share comments or questions, please note that this session is being recorded for documentation and communication purpose. 10 years after the adoption of the 2030 agenda, and with only 4 years left until 2013, the central challenge is no longer to renew commitments, but to accelerate delivery. This year's forum runs from July 7 to July 15, under the theme of transformative, equitable, and coordinated action with in-depth reviews of the goals on water, energy, infrastructure, sustainable cities, and partnerships, and 36 countries presenting their voluntary national reviews. And this question is not ours alone. Civil society, it is official position for this forum, has called for this move from fragmented commitments to coordinated, financed, and accountable implementation. Tonight, we bring evidence to that conversation from the global south and from the territories. It is now my pleasure to open our welcome remarks. Next, Carla. Next.
Sustainable Development Goals is our blueprint and for peace, prosperity, and sustainability for these generations and for the future generations. And this is our shared responsibility. But the SDGs is far off track. I think the high-level political forum is the central forums in order to accelerate the SDG and to bring the discussions and deliberations.
We have to acknowledge that since 2015, we have made significant progress in the water and sanitation. The challenge is not that we don't know what to do. The challenge is the speed and consistency of implementation. Where do I see reason for optimism? Today we see more government working together. We see more civil society organizations stepping forward, and we see more private sector ready to contribute.
So the first line of defense when you are tackling this issue is the need for an integrated energy plan that shows clearly how many people don't have access to electricity, how many people don't have access to clean cooking, and the least cost way of getting them electrified. It's about finance at the end of the day. We've all spoken about blended finance and all these different tools, but the truth of the matter is we have all the technology now, at least in renewables, to connect the 565 million people who don't have access to electricity.
The years ahead will not ask whether the challenges were difficult. They will ask whether we were equal to them.
Let's see the opening remarks. To open, I have the honor of inviting Mr. Luis Yanez, Secretary of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, SCLAC, CEPAL, to share opening words. Mr. Yanez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mrs. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, dear colleagues. It is an honor to welcome you and share very brief opening remark on behalf of ECLAC. Thanks to the co-organizers, speakers, and participants for this event. A decade ago, the world adopted the 2013 agenda as a collective promise. Today, we are facing a growing implementation gap in our region. Fragmented institutions and weak coordination complicate our progress. Multiple global crises have shown the structural vulnerabilities of our societies. At the current rate of progress in Latin America and the Caribbean, just 19 of the targets will be met by 2030. 42% of the targets are moving in the right direction, but at too slow pace. And 39% are moving backwards in comparison with 2015. However, we are not empty-handed. We have the Pact for the Future, which sends a clear signal to the world. Global challenges require inclusive multilateralism that places people at the center of development. It demands the mindful participation of civil society, private sector, local authorities to transform the global governance. On the other hand, we have the UNAID initiative as operation answer for a more efficient, coherent, and fit for purpose UN system. Ensure safe, transparent, and structural space for multi-stakeholder is crucial for governance, credibility, and survival of the UN. Dear colleagues, at ECLAC, we believe in civil society participation must be institutional. Our mechanism for civil society participation is a clear example. It allows civil society to help shape regional action, not simply to observe it. This is especially clear in the Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. Every year, different youth, feminists, women, indigenous, local and private sector representatives from across the region participate actively. They put on the table their concerns, proposals, and demand and offer their experience in SDG implementation to our government. Our experience has taught us an important lesson. When multiple stakeholders have a real seat at the table, policy becomes more coherent, accountability becomes stronger, and implementation improves. But we also need to protect and support this multi-state space. Policy trust depends on it. Dear colleagues, the 2030 agenda is not a finish line. It is a process of learning, of political courage, and cooperation. As you begin your discussion, I invite you to focus on the hows. How we do improve coordination? How do we rebuild trust? How do we bring local experience into national and regional policies? Those are some of the questions that matter. Thank you very much and wish you a productive meeting. Thank you, sir. Ulysses, you are mute.
Ulysses, you must unmute.
Ulysses, you are muted, so we don't hear you.
So, next from Stakeholders Forums, our convener, we welcome to Luis Meuliuman, and I want to thank him personally for joining us at nearly 2 in the morning. Luis, please share your words on Multi-Stakeholder Alliance and collaborative governance for SDG acceleration, please.
Thank you very much, Carlos, and hello, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to make a few remarks as a chair of Stakeholder Forum for a Sustainable Future. I was in New York last week, and I really enjoyed seeing so many highly motivated people from the side, from stakeholders, from governments and UN bodies. Stakeholder Forum itself, we will organize several activities in the coming 14 months until the 27 review, of course, and it will be focusing on capacity building. We have already published recently a primer for stakeholder engaging in this process, focusing on the 8 most environmental related SDGs. But I would now like to make only 3 short remarks. The first is, and it's a bit informed also by my visit last week to the HLPF and attending a lot of meetings and discussing with many people. The first is, and it is also informed by your beautiful concept notes for this session. My first remark is about the analysis in the concept note that fragmented institutions and weak coordination are blocking progress. And I agree with that in the sense that silo mentality is terrible. But the solution is not breaking down the silos, because silos give structure, they give accountability. We don't break them down, but we have to connect them, to link them. And I've called that in the past teaching silos to dance. It's a mindset. So you have to break down the mental silos, not the real silos, because you need them also. That was my first comment. The second is the concept note rightly states that only collaborative governance is not enough. And I'm really very happy that I read that, because my PhD research almost 20 years ago already showed that strong coordination and legislation and accountability must accompany the more informal collaborative approach of governance. And so you have to combine top down and bottom up. That's what you need. But the point is to find the right balance. So it's not that one approach is the best. I'm a big fan. I was born in the Netherlands. I'm a big fan of consensus and of collaborative and informal approaches. But I know from practice that it's not enough, and that there will be that you also need top down, and you need hierarchy because it is very useful sometimes. A stakeholder engagement will always be needed in any governance approach. My last comment is about what I last week at the HLPF called the elephant in the room, namely the extremely uneven power distribution among stakeholders who influence political decisions. This is often called the political economy. I was happy to see that in the introductory video, Secretary General Guterres also mentioned this. But maybe we don't talk about it so much because we cannot change this power, this power distribution inequality. But I think we have to confront that. At least we should not be naive on that. I saw last week a nice statistic that suggested that up to 90% of the people who were surveyed said that the SDGs are very important. But I'm thinking that maybe the 10% that did not reply positively have 90% of the power. So that's a reality. So it's not only stakeholders that suffer from this, but also the UN bodies, the government people. So therefore, I believe that stakeholders from all interest groups must invest in joint work with government and with UN bodies to work together in addressing these big power differences in a way. No, there's not one solution, but closer collaboration is good. So to sum up my three remarks: one, connect silos, don't break them down. Two, seek the balance between top-down and bottom-up, and between formal and informal, because we need both. And three, address the big power differences and don't run around it. It's an elephant and it's there, and we should not be trampled by that elephant. So far, this is a very short introduction, and thank you very much for your attention, and looking forward to hear from other speakers.
Thank you, Luis, and thank you for the effort of being with us from Europe at this hour. Thank you very much. And finally, I invite Mr. Carlos Miranda, President and founder of the Foundation for the Social Development, FUDESO, to offer institutional words of welcome and to speak to the meaning of the SideEvent for our work. Carlos, the floor is yours, the microphone is yours, all is yours.
Thank you, Ulises. And thank you, Luis and Lois, for framing this conversation so well. Your words are very clearly for this conversation, for this moment, this very important moment for the multilateral planet that we are living. So Ulises said that tonight we bring evidence. As I speak, I hope you can feel that all of your territories are represented and present here, like Africa, like South America, like United States, like all the territories. So next, please, Carla. So we're gathered here with more than 100 participants from more than 50 countries, and more than half of them civil society, not governments. If progress on the goals is uneven and insufficient, as this year SDG report tells us, that's already a clue as the why the fix can't come only from ministries. It has to come from the work of organizations that genuinely work tirelessly for development. Yeah. Next, please, Carla. how you maybe recall before this event, we asked you a few things, and this is what you told us, and where the obstacles lies. Yeah. Give me a second, please. Per- Perfect. Yeah. So, on where the obstacles lies, the answer splits by regions. 40% in Africa point to financing, and 26% in Latin America points to institutional fragmentation. The global South does not speak with one voice, yeah? And in Asia, maybe it's different. And that is exactly why tonight panels matters, because the recommendations that come out of this room need to reflect Chile as much as Colombia, Nepal, Finland, Rapa Nui, and South Africa. Not a single prescription, yeah? Next, please, Carla. And on what the governance should look like, the answer was clear. 38% call for binding co-decision, not just a seat at the table with the government. 32% called for real transparency mechanisms. 21% called for permanent coordinator platform, not committees. As someone from this very network put it, beyond consultations toward genuine co-creation. Next, please, Carla. And something that resonated strongly across their responses. For nearly 4 out of 10, localize the goals means about all community ownership, not administrative decentralization. It is not about bringing an office closer to the territory. It's about leading territories define its own priorities. In 2023, I was at the high-level political forum, and from there we asked the government of Chile to reopen the National Commission for Sustainable Development. That didn't happen. This is why, from our territories and organizations, we ourselves convened the National Commission in our country, inviting to state to join us, yeah, rather than waiting for the state that convinces us. So the change is in our hands. Last slide, please, Carla. For final, every organization and every territory present will share visions toward 2045. Governance that no longer administers sustainable development in a fragmented, reactive form, but anticipates it territorially, with integrity and in communion, rights-based co-decision, real decentralization, institutional integrity, evidence-based anticipation, and underneath all of that, sustainable financing, the conditions that makes the rest possible. Tomorrow, this forum adopts its ministerial declaration. Tonight, panel is our organization's contribution to that conversation, because that is at its core what we're doing here, moving from fragmentation to delivery, building multi-stakeholder governance to accelerate the sustainable development goals, but now, not for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, for connecting global agendas with territorial realities, social participation, and concrete implementation of the goals. We sincerely thank each of the voices that have opened this session. Together, they set the political, institutional, and social frame for our conversation. They need to move from global commitments toward effective coordination, implementation, follow-up, and collective learning. We now turn to the heart of our session, the panel. We will now begin our panel discussion. Throughout this conversation, we invite our panelists to share their perspectives and experience around for interconnected areas, multi-stakeholder for sustainable development, localization of the 2013 agenda, institutional mechanism, enabling participation and accountability, opportunities and challenge in advancing the SDGs across different national and local contexts. Rather than looking for a single governance model, this panel seeks to understand how different countries, institutions, territories, and communities are building mechanisms for cooperation, participation, implementation, and accountability. I will invite each panelist to briefly reflect on these areas from their own perspectives and then address a question connected to their particular experience. Please. We begin with Chile. I invite Mrs. Margarita Ducci, private sector representative to Chile International Commission for Sustainable Development and executive director for the UN Global Compact in Chile. The Chilean case is especially relevant for the role of National Commission and public-private articulation. Please tell us about your perspective on multi-stakeholder governance and localization of the 2013 agenda, participation and accountability mechanism, and the opportunities and challenges involved in advancing in SDGs.
Thank you, Ulises, and thank you to everyone. Good evening. I'm very glad to be here with you and invited especially just representing UN Global Compact in Chile that has been directed since 2007 in the country, and we have more than 200 companies that have joined the organization. And at the same time, the National Commission for Sustainable Development of Chile, where we represent the private sector. And I would like to say that everyone is thinking today that, as we all know, we are 4 years away from 2030, so we're very close for the supposed ending of the Agenda 2030. And the truth is that we are very far. We are very far. We should stop asking whether the SDGs are still relevant. They are more relevant than ever. We really think that. The real question is whether we are willing to act with the urgency that today challenges demand, as the Secretary General already said. Globally, progress on the Sustainable Development Goals has been slower than expected. The climate change continues to accelerate inequalities. They remain deep. Biodiversity is under increasing pressure. And geopolitical tensions, of course, has made international cooperation even more challenging. So it would be easy to become very, very much discouraged because of that. But I believe that is precisely the moment that we need more cooperation, not less. So this is why this representation is so important. The challenge is no longer defining what we needs to be done. The challenge is delivering results. That is the title of today's event, in particular meaningful, from fragmentation to delivery. In Chile, we have learned that sustainable development cannot be achieved by government acting alone, nor by companies acting alone, nor by civil society acting alone. Progress only happens when all these actors work together around common objectives. These also have emerged clearly from the multi-stakeholder dialogue carried out in preparation for the Global Sustainable Development Report 2027 that we work in the National Commission of Sustainable Development in Chile. So, in general, I would say the agenda is still very important for everyone. The only way to do it is to collaborate and work together, and we have to go from declaration to action. Today, we believe, and we have seen that as for our experience from the Global Compact, that the companies, even they value sustainability, they need to prove what the sustainability offers to results, because we are in a different moment in economy. We are in a different moment in social problems, in tensions, in war even. So the companies are in a difficult situation economically, and if they can prove that sustainability really collaborate to their results, they are going to invest much more, and this is very, very a very good circle to improve the development for the agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ducci. And a reminder that implementation needs shared commitments, but also institutions able to coordinate responsibilities, resources, and capacities. We continue with Colombia through the National Planning Department, DNP, within the framework of its high-level interinstitutional commission for the 2013 agenda. I invite Ms. Natalia Calderon. Colombia's case shows how interinstitutional mechanisms support policy coherence and coordination across levels of governments. Same question for you, Natalia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to the organizers of this HLPF side event for the opportunity to speak today, especially to Carlos Miranda and Fundación para el Desarrollo Social for inviting us to be part of this important discussion. So over the next few minutes, I want to share with you Colombia's proposal for moving from fragmentation to delivery. To begin with, we all know that we are only a few years away from 2030, yet progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals remains uneven and slow. At the same time, we are facing a convergence of climate crisis, geopolitical tensions, fiscal constraints, and an increasingly complex international landscape. These challenges have also reinforced the global debate about what should come after the SDGs or after the 2030 agenda. Financing, and particularly climate finance, has become the clearest reflection of these tensions. It reveals not only how resources are allocated, but also how countries and the international system are transforming commitments into results. Against this background, from the SDG Technical Secretariat of Colombia at the National Planning Department, we have promoted a broader conversation through what we call the 2030 Plus initiative. Just a few days ago, last week actually, Bogota hosted a 2030 Plus Finance for Life event. It was a high-level forum that brought together representatives from national and local governments, multilateral organizations, development banks, international cooperation agencies, the private sector, academia, civil society organizations, and most importantly, local communities. Our objective was not only to discuss the future of sustainable development, but to identify practical solutions for making implementation more effective. The conversations led to several important conclusions. So I would like to share those conclusions with you. The first one, and perhaps the strongest one, was that the world's greatest challenge is not longer defining new goals. The real challenge is building the capacity to turn them into results. Any future global agenda must play execution at its core. It must strengthen coordination across institutions, sectors, and stakeholders, and focus on delivering results for people and territories. A second conclusion was that financing should no longer be measured by the amount of money, but by its ability to improve people's lives. This requires a more effective financial architecture, one that aligns investments with national priorities, support climate action, and strengthens institutional capacity and promotes more effective financial strategies. And last but not least, the discussions made one thing clear. No country can address today's challenges alone. In an increasingly fragmented world, cooperation must evolve from a space for dialogue into a platform for implementation. And how we can do that, I think that's through a stronger partnership, through clearer responsibilities and greater coordination among governments, development banks, international organizations, the private sector, and the civil society. Finally, one key takeaway from the discussions that we had at the event was that transformations begins in the territories. Communities are no longer seen as beneficiaries of development policies. They are recognized as key actors in driving sustainable solutions, bringing knowledge, leadership, and innovation to climate and social challenges. This brings me to the central point I would like to share with you today, and it's not about replacing the 2030 agenda or negotiating a new set of goals. It is about starting a global conversation on the implementation capacities that any future agenda will require to succeed. Our central idea is very simple. Sustainable development needs an implementation architecture as strong as the ambition of its goals. So, to support that conversation, Colombia is proposing a post-2030 implementation framework built around 4 interconnected components. The first one is strategic prioritization. So it is about defining specific criteria, definition of key indicators and metrics for the section. The second one is related to a country strategy. This is about establishing governance of leadership and coordination structures, about mobilization of resources and financial support mechanisms, and strengthening of skills and resources at the local level. This is the country strategy. The third one is related to accountability, and basically it's about reporting on global progress and achievements, receiving international assistance and cooperations, and monitoring systems and consequences for not compliance. The last one, the fourth one, is an incentive scheme. And at the national level, it's about coordination among national actors for follow-up, and at the international level, it's about integration of specific projects with the overall strategy, and about consolidation of a coherent set of development projects. So together, these 4 components move us from fragmentation to direction, from disconnected commitments to real implementation capacity. And in short, Colombia is not proposing another set of goals. We are proposing a framework for delivery, one that turns political into institutional capacity, and institutional capacity into real results. We look forward to work with partnerships across the international community in order to shape this conversation together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia. Implementation requires an institutional architecture that connects planning, responsibility, and territorial articulation. Thank you very much, Natalia. And now we move on our side the world, we will well, signed by Mr. Arjun Vathari, president of the NGO Federation of Nepal and representative of the Nepal Development Initiative. Nepal's experience is essential to understand the role of civil society and community platforms in localization, monitoring, and accountability. Please, please, Arjun, tell us about your views on multi-stakeholder governance, the localization of the 2013 agenda, participation and accountability mechanism, and the opportunities and challenges involved in advancing SDGs across national and territorial context. The floor is yours, Arjun.
Hello, apology, my apology. My microphone not working. Now it's okay?
Don't worry, don't worry. The floor
Okay,
is
thank you
yours.
so much. Thank you, Carlos, and thank you, team. Organize a great like meetings. I think I'm traveling, so I think you audible my sound and everything. I'm in Malaysia now. However, I'm talking about the global perspective and of course the Nepal. So of course, like first my comment. SDG is very relevant still for the civil society, but not for the government, including my government. Okay, so I think now the situation, I think the no more commitment we can make like SDG in this critical times of global geopolitics and global scenario. So we need to keep continue pushing post 2030 agenda because like for if you see the people in focusing a lot of war, like different kinds of political issues. So not people's agenda. So I think it's very important for still for the civil society the 2030 agenda. So we need to keep continue pushing to at least to make relevance like couple of years. Okay, that is the first my comment. Second, the SDG governance is very very poor. Like because of that, like we are unable to succeed the SDG. Like even the global 12%, almost 40% achievement, but many country at least 50%. In my country 41.7% achievement, but it's a government data. But however, as a civil society, not more than 25% achieve in my country even. But however, it's it's a continue effort we need to make. At least we need to push 50% within 2030. That is my second comment. Third comment, data, very difficult to believe the data like across the globe. So we did a lot of activity, but the civil society, private sector activity not included the government data, and also that there is a lack of data, horizontal, vertical, and even the global. I read the report of the Secretary General in 2024, but it's I don't believe my country data. So I think we need to make a clear data. So how you can make a progress of the SDG. So I think my suggestion as a civil society, we need to produce the independent report, a global report, for in 2027, next General Assembly to showcase our impact to and our contribution within the SDG, because civil society made a credible impact in the SDG. So that is my third point. And fourth point, resources. Okay, there was a huge resource crunch after the USA funding cut, and so globally civil society suffering a lot, including my country. So more than millions of job cut up. So civil society in a very very difficult time, critical time. However, we want to make this stable relevance for the society, because it's the people agenda. Poverty is a people agenda. Climate justice is a people agenda. So we need the resources. So how we can get alternative philanthropy? How can get private funding? How can make this climate funding more relevant for the civil society? Because there's a lots of challenge for the civil society to get the climate fund. Okay, because my country is suffering a lot of in the climate change, including many countries Africa, Latin America. So we need a resource for the justice. Not we are not beggar. Okay, we want to make our justice in a relevance. So I think we need to improve the climate funding and climate governance. Okay, including this green climate fund or climate investment fund, all in climate related fund. We need that justice. And my fifth comment, now is investing a lot of money for the for this war, but nobody pushing this war need to be stop. Even in not working like a lot of the pushing and dialogue and meeting. So we need to make UN relevance for for the peoples and the planet, not for a lot of others. So it means how really UN engage in the next this post 2030 agenda. And we are to looking the new secretary general giving the high priority, because people suffering a lot across the globe, a lot of challenges facing climate change, and poverty increase, people's fighting a lot of across the globe. So even in young people in my country now, we have a young Gen Z government, but even the protestation coming on, young people suffering a lot. They have no job, and people looking something in a new commitment in the future. So I think really we need to engage together for pushing the post 2030 agenda, mostly focusing on resources, and and also there's intersectionality. We need to look the gender disparity and disability. A lot of people in suffering, LGBTIQ suffering across the globe. So I think there's a emerging new agenda across the globe, and we need to work a lot of this intergeneration dialogue, intergeneration cooperation. And because the Gen Z movement across the globe, burning. So in my country also, it was in the big issue couple of months, but now settling, NFN is started dialogue a lot of. So as a civil society, I need to conclude. So there should be a intergeneration dialogue and discourse, and also the we need to politically correctly make to the UN, and also the give opportunity to the civil society, and also the really need to recognize the civil society the major stakeholder together with the private sector. Okay, that is the really even also even the SDG, this whole governance mechanism not recognize civil society as the major stakeholder, but in a document they written, but in terms of funding, in terms of opportunity, always we are facing a lot of challenges, including my country. So I think I like to request the government people, private sector, civil society work together for the planet and the peoples. Okay, so we are in this we have the common agenda, poverty, we have the common agenda, hunger, we have to put a common agenda, climate justice. So we should work together in future. So we need to make common understanding in 2027, high level political forum, and this UNGA, and should make new agenda. We need SDG continue in futures also, and beyond 2030. Thank you so much.
Thank you for you, Mr. Valery. Civil society is not only a consultative actor, you are an example, but also an actor of implementation, follow-up, and trust building. We move to Europe. We continue with Finland. Throughout its National Commission on Sustainable Development, I invite Ms. Taru Savolainen. Finland offers a valuable perspective on institutional continuity, long-term planning, and governance sustained over time. Please, same question, and please tell us about your views on multi-stakeholder governance, the localization of 2013 agenda, participation and accountability mechanism, and the opportunities and challenges involved in advancing the SDGs across national and territorial contexts. The floor is yours, Taru.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for having me join this discussion. I'm actually joining still from New York, as I have been here at the HLPF and can continue to be so until tomorrow. But as introduced, I am the Secretary General of the Finnish National Commission on Sustainable Development, and that is a multi-stakeholder body which is chaired by the Prime Minister, by a youth representative, and currently by a researcher from the University of Jyväskylä in Finland. And in the Commission, which is kind of the heart of Finland's multi-stakeholder governance, we have representation from all government ministries, from all political parties in the Finnish parliament, from our autonomous regions, our autonomous Sami parliament, the Sami people, who are the indigenous people in Finland, and the autonomous Åland Islands that are located between Finland and Sweden and make up their own region. And then we have a broad variety of NGOs. We have the labor unions, we have cultural actors, we have now media, we have the research community, and we have tried to gather a balanced representation of approximately 60 bodies with their personal substitutes around one table to discuss and oversee how sustainable development and the Agenda 2030 in Finland are implemented. And this work has been going on since 1993, so it's not an invention that was brought up with the SDGs and the 2030 agenda, but something that was actually already existed before that. But now we anchor our work to the SDGs. And to be very frank and honest, the Commission has no formal decision-making power, but it does have a Prime Minister given mandate to oversee the mainstreaming of sustainable development into policymaking. And in practice, this can mean, for example, that emerging policy initiatives are being discussed in the Commission before they are finalized, and that gives an opportunity for direct exchange between multiple parties in Finnish society around topical issues. Again, it is not guaranteed that the dialogue has an impact, but it is a forum for having such a dialogue. And this helps us also with the SDG localization, because one active stakeholder in the Commission are Finnish cities and smaller municipalities, and particularly the Association for Finnish Cities and Municipalities that are very active members inside the Commission. And through that, we also cooperate in preparing Finland's VNRs and connecting them with the voluntary local reviews. That is an active collaboration that has been taken place in several rounds of reports now. Well then, going to the institutional mechanisms that enable participation and accountability, in addition to the Commission, one important participatory platform are two youth expert groups that work appointed by the Prime Minister's office and in connection to the Commission on Sustainable Development, one focusing particularly on the SDGs and one focusing on nature and climate. And those youth expert groups have their independent mandates. They have some funding from the public sector, and then they are more and more often being called, for example, to Parliament to be heard as experts, which I'm very happy of, because they have developed kind of their own advisory role in very many forums. And then we do engage in parliamentary dialogue from the government side, because the government in Finland needs to report to the Finnish Parliament annually on how they implement the SDGs based on the plan that they submit at the beginning of their term to the Parliament. So that's kind of a system of the implementation that we have nationally established for trying to make the most of multi-stakeholder and multi-level governance, and also to create some kind of mechanisms for engaging in active dialogue with stakeholders and with the kind of also the bodies that have a mandate to oversee politics and policy making in Finland. And then when it comes to maybe the challenges and opportunities side, nationally, one big challenge is that our youth group once asked at a National Commission meeting that how many members in the room have noticed that when they discuss with someone what sustainable development means, the other person in the discussion disagrees. So there are differing views of what sustainability means, and that is something that happens very often, or sometimes we maybe emphasize different elements of sustainability. And although we have very solid and scientific definition of, for example, strong sustainability, sometimes we come across the understanding that we're not talking about the same thing. Fortunately, we have the SDGs, that are a shared global framework. And that is what we need to continue to have further on also, because it is very important that we have something that is internationally, globally agreed, so that we have a shared vision and a shared anchor that we can all have. And then when it comes to the opportunities, I genuinely believe, coming kind of partially also from government, because although I am Secretary General to a multi-stakeholder commission, I sit as a civil servant inside the Prime Minister's office. But I genuinely believe that in the multi-stakeholder cooperation is the biggest strength globally, nationally, and also locally of achieving sustainable development. And that is something that we really need to build on whenever we discuss implementation or discussing any future frameworks or something like that. And the multi-stakeholder cooperation includes the private sector, it includes civil society, it includes young people, it includes the broadest possible definition of that. I thank you.
Thank you, Miss Savolainen. A reminder that the importance of institutional continuity, trust, and the capacity to adapt without losing strategic direction.
We have progress around SDG 11, but yes, of course, many challenges. Perhaps the main challenge is around housing and informal settlements. We still have a major global crisis of affordability. We have actually, large percentage of the population that is spending more than 30% of their income in housing, being in mortgage or in rent, and 3 billion people living in inadequate housing conditions. So let's put investments in urban infrastructure. Big challenge is to get the finances together. So if governments put housing, put urban infrastructure, cities at the center of development, then we have a possibility to leverage domestic finance to deal with the challenges cities and communities have, but also to leverage the money that is out there.
So small island developing states are the most vulnerable countries on Earth by and large, and what that really means is that they suffer disproportionate losses when an exogenous shock happens, right? So when a shock hits, again, they have to go to international capital markets quite often if they have access to them, or they have to borrow from sources that are much more expensive than would be the case if they had access to concessional financing. But SIDS also generate a huge amount of value for humanity. They generate massive amounts of kind of cultural diversity. They generate a significant amount of the world's good governance. Investing in SIDS is actually a much broader investment in global sustainability.
I think most of the solutions are driven top down, and we want the SIDS, the Pacific Island countries, to be involved in the solutions that they want for themselves. I think that would be one. They also would seek the states to take note of a rights-based approach. Many times workers' rights, labor standards, environmental standards, these become lower in the agenda. I think the priority should be in terms of asking how do they implement the SDG 8 on decent work, which means the workers have the right to a national living wage, the workers have a right to decent work, to earn enough to put food on the table.
And now, turn a territorial perspective from Rapa Nui. I invite Miss Valeria Pacarati. Daremos su punto de vista respecto a lo que es la perspectiva territorial de Rapa Nui, desde Rapa Nui. Así que quiero, Valeria, y yo le voy a traducir obviamente para que los demás escuchen, su perspectiva sobre la gobernanza multiactor, la localización que está en Rapa Nui en la Agenda 2030, los mecanismos de participación y rendición de cuentas, así como las oportunidades y los desafíos para avanzar en los ODS en los distintos contextos nacionales y territoriales. El escenario es suyo y cada cierto rato ojalá pueda parar para que pueda traducir lo que esté diciendo, por favor.
Yolanda, ¿se escucha bien?
Sí, se escucha.
Yo de Córdoba, mi nombre es Valeria Patanati, soy mujer Rapa Nui, soy presidenta de la ONG Bahía Matatoa y soy Premio Nacional de Sostenibilidad de la Sociedad.
Valeria, se escucha un poco bajito.
Hablo más fuerte entonces. Bueno, como explicaba, soy Premio Nacional de Sostenibilidad de la Agenda 2030-2025, Premio Nacional, y soy consejera nacional electa hoy día para los pueblos indígenas de Conal. Agradezco profundamente esta invitación y contarles que cuando conocí la Agenda 2030 comprendí que los objetivos del desarrollo sostenible no eran solamente metas internacionales, y para mí representaban un lenguaje común que permitía dialogar entre los gobiernos, la sociedad civil y los pueblos indígenas. Sin embargo, para los pueblos indígenas esta visión no es algo nuevo, es algo que...
Vale, te va a ir Ulises traduciendo, si no, no van a alcanzar a entenderte. De poquito, de poquito. Dale, Ulises.
Bueno, los pueblos indígenas, esta visión no es nueva y todas las generaciones entendemos que la salud, el océano, la biodiversidad y todo.
Disculpe, Valeria is National Advisor for Indigenous People in Chile. Is a Rapa Nui people. Is from Rapa Nui, an island for Polynesia in the Pacific Ocean.
Bueno, para los pueblos indígenas, la Agenda 2030 es algo que ya conocíamos, es una forma de vida dentro de los pueblos indígenas, no es una visión nueva, y todo lo que implica los 17 objetivos eran parte del bienestar y de las futuras generaciones. En Occidente esto lo organiza al principio como objetivos de desarrollo, pero para nosotros son parte de nuestra vida. Luego, por esta razón, decidimos hacer proyectos que impulsáramos y aportáramos con los objetivos. Desarrollamos iniciativas de salud intercultural.
For indigenous peoples, the 2013 agenda is a vision closely linked to their ancestral beliefs for the Rapa Nui people.
Desarrollamos iniciativas de salud intercultural, tales como la prevención del VIH, educación cívica, igualdad de género y protección del medio ambiente y la conservación de la biodiversidad y los derechos humanos. Esto fortaleciendo también a los pueblos indígenas como actores que podían comunicarse con el Estado y con el resto de la sociedad para poder implementarlo en el territorio y aportar también de nuestro conocimiento.
The initiative promotes intercultural understanding, gender equality, and biodiversity conservation, positioning indigenous peoples as key players for the sustainable development and multi-stakeholder objectives.
Y ahí nos dimos cuenta que nada de esto había sido posible sin construir alianzas. Hemos trabajado junto a programas de Naciones Unidas, tanto como PNUD, UNFPA, la OMS, la OPS, para la prevención del VIH. Con la Organización Mundial de la Salud, hemos hecho capacitaciones y la Municipalidad de Isla de Pascua firmó el Acuerdo de París para la prevención del VIH y la salud. Esto se ha llevado a cabo en talleres con personas privadas de libertad, además, temas y tocando toda la sociedad indígena y no indígena.
Espera. Por favor. To Rapa Nui people, alliance with the United Nations as the World Health Organization have been crucial, providing training in health education, biodiversity, environmental education, and HIV prevention for diseases from the young people in Rapa Nui.
Todo esto ha sido gracias a estas alianzas importantes y conectando a las personas con la naturaleza, la cultura y las necesidades, aportando a este lugar tan pequeño como Rapa Nui, un lugar más cercano, estamos como 700 kilómetros, y hemos logrado estas alianzas y hemos trabajado con la OMS de forma en comunión y hemos sacado adelante toda esta proyección y vamos a seguir trabajando en ello. Quisiera finalizar señalando que los pueblos indígenas no solo contribuimos al cumplimiento de la agenda, también recordamos al mundo que el desarrollo sostenible comienza cuando comprendemos que todo estamos
Por favor,
conectados.
what's important for the Rapa Nui people is connecting people with nature, and they have collaborated with various social environmental organizations on the island.
Y los invitamos a seguir trabajando en ello y a seguir asociándonos para poder sacar adelante los territorios y lograr lo que es principal para los pueblos indígenas, que es el buen vivir. Las sociedades con buen vivir tienen mejor desarrollo y pueden tener un mejor futuro. Maururu por esta invitación y poder contarles cómo hemos salido desde este pequeño lugar y hemos podido avanzar con las alianzas que hemos tenido gracias a la Agenda 2030 y a cada uno de ustedes que ha apostado para que nosotros podamos salir al mundo y poder recibir desde otros organismos apoyo para el desarrollo. Maururu.
These partnerships have been essential in involving the vision of the indigenous people. Thank you, Valeria, for your perspective of Rapa Nui people and extreme valuable patrimony in Chile. Maururu, vale. We now to close this round with South Africa. South Africa, one of my favorite nations. I invite Mr. Jared Segai. This perspective is key to role of regional platforms and civil society in citizen monitoring and accountability. Mr. Jared, please tell us about your views on multi-stakeholder governance, the localization tour of the 2030 agenda, participation and accountability mechanism, and the opportunities and challenge involved in advancing the SDGs across national and territorial context. Mr. Jared, the floor is yours. We'll listen.
Thank you so much. Good morning and good afternoon. I would speak to the South African case, but at times I will refer to other African country cases. Last year, or actually this year, the Global Forum has done a study, which I would share the chat on bridging the divide, probably on the same topic, and I will borrow some of those outcomes to the discussion. So generally, in South Africa's case, there has been a limited progress in the implementation of SDGs. The most important progress is in terms of embedding SDGs in the National Development Plan and the integrated development plan at a provincial and local government levels. And obviously, the country has done at least 2 voluntary national reviews, and more than 10 municipalities are doing the voluntary local review. So there is a traction. The SDGs is embedded in the institutional system of the country. But of course, is this translated to actual outcome in improving people's livelihoods? Obviously, it is uneven and very limited. But again, there are some pockets of success you will see in various sectors when it comes to SDG. So I think I would agree with the colleague from Colombia to focus on framework for delivery post 2030, because it did take more than probably 10 years to embed the SDGs in the policy-making processes in countries from national to provincial and local government levels. Now coming up with another round of new type of SDGs wouldn't work. We continue with what we are, but then we focus on the delivery mechanism. Generally, in South Africa, as well as other African countries, the challenge is the debt crisis is here. Especially most African countries are facing debt crisis. A very weak minister of implementation in there. So when you have those two factors taken into consideration, the implementation is slow and uneven. But probably focusing on the governance mechanism in South Africa, there was a plan in 2019 to establish a multi-interministerial governance mechanism, but in practice, the priority of government changed. I think there was a change in government, and with that, sort of some of those ideas were lost. But in effect, though, there were ad hoc mechanisms where the ministry at the presidency or the National Planning Commission invites civil society, labor, and business to work together in a number of issues. Give you an example, when they're doing VNR, VLR processes, always there is such a request coming and various entities working together. You will see a business in South Africa, they have approached the SDG concept and are delivering multiple interventions throughout the country focused on the SDGs. I think our colleagues in Global Compact South Africa have done a very wonderful report on that. Civil society is doing the same, labor is doing the same. So there is this collaborative push towards implementation, but based on ad hoc structures rather than establishing national structure which coordinating this governance mechanism. What we are finding very important or success factor is the professional coordination, demand responsive programming that aligns with government needs and priorities. Those are important factors which contributed to sort of how the SDG governance mechanism in the country is working at this point in time. When it comes to the institutional design to strengthen coordination across actors and sectors, obviously this depends on national context or the existing political systems in each country. But those platforms access through strategic relationship building over structural perfection. So that is the fact where a number of times there were multiple attempts across the continent to institutionalize those multi-stakeholder advisory bodies. But I think more important is a relationship-based work with government rather than establishing or legislated structure function. So that is one thing which we are finding very important. In terms of accountability mechanisms to contribute to rebuilding trust, a number of times, especially from society perspective, providing evidence-based, transparent reporting builds credibility. For instance, South Africa, we do produce a complementary report, not a shadow report. So for instance, in South Africa, civil society is part of the VNR and VLR writing groups. So we cannot be produce shadow report when we are part of the writers for the government. So we do provide supplementary report or people's report, but we are part of the group of people who would be producing those reports. So those are one way of rebuilding trust between government officials as well as civil society actors. In terms of territorial and indigenous governance, obviously there are multiple mechanisms which focus on community-centered dialogue mechanisms which exist in South Africa and other parts of the continent. There are local councils and local government level interact with traditional leaders. Those provide as well such an opportunity. The last is around the localization to strengthen SDG implementation. In a number of African countries, especially in South Africa, the actual implementation of SDGs happen at a local level. National government, in most cases, is formulating policies, but when it comes to service delivery, it happens at a provincial and local government level. And that is especially for certain SDG goals. For instance, on water and sanitation, the mandate is municipal mandate. On electricity provision is municipal mandate. On housing, healthcare, etc. So a number of those implemented actually happen at local level. So that is and a number of those local authorities are integrating SDGs in the integrated development plans at a local level. So you will see that there is taking root at that level, and there is huge interest from municipal officials around SDGs. So the localization is a must, and we need to encourage it. And at times, of course, what we see is a lack of capacity at the local level to understand and integrate SDGs in the integrated development plan, which is at the local government level. And various, for instance, they would receive a number of requests to assist municipalities to do VLRs and etc. But that is probably the last sort of frontier where we need to push, where the local government has sufficient capabilities to integrate and deliver on SDGs. That is, in summary, some of my inputs, and I will share on the chat the report from the Global Forum done this year. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you for you, Mr. Sakai. Accountability is not only institutional reporting, it's a condition for trust and for reaching communities. In the interest of time, I invite the panelists and attendees to leave their reflections in the chat to bring this wonderful day of knowledge, perspective, and multilateralism to close. Thank you very much for coming.
That it is really important that the participation and engagement of the different constituencies is strengthened here within the HLPF, because multilateralism, as we know and as we see, is under a lot of pressure right now. One of the positive things that I've seen so far is that we keep having some of our most progressive countries supporting civil society, pushing and holding the line, and actually supporting our efforts.
It's about quality. Quality engagement means ensuring that civil society and stakeholders are involved at every step of the process. What I want governments to take away is the crucial understanding that civil society and stakeholders need to be partners in implementation.
Guinea is conducting a comprehensive review of all 17 agenda goals in order to ensure monitoring of progress towards 2030.
On health targets, we note that in 2024, Jamaica joined 20 countries validated by the WHO for eliminating mother-to-child transmission of HIV and congenital syphilis.
Burkina Faso continues to believe in sustainable development. We believe in the capacity of people to transform their destinies. Burkina Faso is staunchly continuing its energy transition. Since 2016, the share of renewables in our national energy mix nearly doubled.
There is a video for the 8 years of United Nations, and I echo, like Ulysses Pinacho, call for the reconstruction of multilateralism and international relations to solve today's problems. Let's play the video, Carla.
The drafters of the Economic and Social Council had a very big task to perform, a task in which they realized that the hopes of world peace depended upon the manner in which the economic and social problems facing the world and of individual nations could be solved.
You carry on your shoulders the hope of all humanity. For the first time in the history of international relations, the nations of the world have set up one common body to consider and, when possible, to rectify the economic and social problems that beset mankind.
For 80 years, the United Nations Economic and Social Council has stood at the center of multilateralism. It has brought nations and stakeholders together to advance dignity, equality, and opportunity. From its early days, ECOSOC helped build the UN development system that supports millions of people. It championed human rights, it promoted gender equality, and it guided countries towards shared goals for a better future. ECOSOC has led the world through major challenges: poverty, hunger, health crises, education gaps, and a changing climate. From the Millennium Development Goals to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Sustainable Development Goals, it has helped unite the global community behind a common vision. It also opened the UN's doors wider than ever. Civil society, young people, scientists, private sector, and local communities found a voice at the global table.
The world today is navigating a polycrisis: conflict, climate disruptions, economic uncertainty, and deepening inequalities.
Yet ECOSOC's mission endures: to advance progress, protect people, and push for sustainable development that leaves no one behind. As ECOSOC enters its next chapter, its role in advancing multilateralism and solidarity is more vital than ever. 8 decades of impact, decades of action ahead. Together, we are building a sustainable world for all.